Cattails. This is just a cute book with stories about cats and photos of cats. I liked it fine. It was fine to read, but it's not anything impressive, so goodbye. Love Letters to the Dead. This is another YA story where the English teacher gives out a very special project at just the right time, and the protagonist writes love letters to dead celebrities about all her problems. It's very, very standard, basic, nothing special. Beauty Queens by Lil Ray. I like this alright. I thought the concept was pretty good. It's like a female Lord of the Flies with the pageant contestants. It was fun, but it's nothing that I really enjoyed, and I don't really like the cover. Again, I'm not a fan of photograph covers, so I'm gonna unhaul it. I think this is the last supernatural book, The Unholy Cause. Yeah, I don't have room on my shelves for these books when I don't really care for them as much anymore. A Whole New World by Liz Braswell. Very weird tone in this. They try to do a lot of dark things while keeping some things way too light, and I don't think it meshed well together at all. I would have loved a dark fantasy Aladdin, and this is that, essentially, but with a bunch of weird, sort of, like the genie is still the same character he is in the Disney movie making jokes, but also his wife is dead, and then he just goes back to making jokes after he says that, so I don't know, the tone is just really weird, and I didn't end up really enjoying it. The writing style wasn't for me. Asunder. My friend got me this, so it hurts me to let it go, but David Gator is just really not a great author. He's not a writer that I really enjoyed reading, and I don't think I enjoyed his work in the games as much either. I liked some of his plot points, but his characters always felt weaker, and I think Cole is actually much better written by Patrick Weeks, so I'm going to be unhauling this even though it breaks my heart. The 5 Stages of Andrew Brawley. This is about a boy who gets trapped in a hospital, and I don't remember exactly what's going on with him there, but it wasn't a very memorable book, obviously, so I'm going to be unhauling it. We Will Never Be Apart. This is a book about sort of mental illness as a monster type thing, and I'm not a super fan of that. I don't remember much else about the book. I don't think the horror was very well done. I was never scared while reading it either, so it's easy to let go of. Fan art. This is a book about fandom that doesn't quite get fandom, and there's also some very creepy implications in this book. They support writing or drawing art of real people, and doesn't seem to care how the real people might feel about it, so I don't want to keep this book on my shelf. I just didn't really like that at all. My Sister's Keeper. I actually enjoyed this. I liked how different it was from the movie. I liked the different path that it took, but it's not a cute cover, and I'm not so attached to it that I actually want to keep it on my shelves. When Everything Feels Like the Movies by Raziel Reed. I hated this book. This is maybe my most hated book I've ever read. The main character is a predator and absolutely awful, but it's spun like he is a victim and some gentle angel who needs to be protected, and he is a horrible human being, like in every imaginable way. So I'm gonna unhaul this, and I pity whoever picks it up. Impulse, another Ellen Hopkins book. I just really like reading these as ebooks better. They're such fat books because they're poetry books and they take up a lot of space, and they are not... I was really into them in high school, but I don't think they're that good anymore. I don't enjoy them as much as I used to. Unspeakable. This is a lesbian love story that involves a murder. It was alright, not super memorable. The characters weren't that great, and I didn't feel a lot of chemistry between them, so that'll go. What We Left Behind. I hated this book. It was just such a mess from beginning to end. I don't need this book on my shelf. Wonder. A lot of people really love this book, but I struggled to connect with it. It's middle grade, and I'm not a huge fan of middle grade, so I don't know if that's what it was, but it just didn't connect with me, so I'm going to unhaul it. Consent. This is a story about a teacher and a student having an affair, and she is underage, and it is not spun like the teacher is a criminal. The teacher is in fact spun as the romantic interest, and the world is the criminal for not allowing it. So that's disgusting, and this has to go. Dumplin'. I don't like Julie Murphy's writing. I don't like her characters. I thought that Dumplin' was a bad main character. She's not someone I wanted to root for, and for that reason I'm unhauling the book. Half Bad. I heard a lot of good things about this series and I just couldn't get into it. I couldn't get into the first book, so I'm not going to keep it around. The Fashion Committee. This was actually an alright read, but there was a lot going on. It felt like it wanted to tackle every single real-world issue there could be, and it ended up being really messy, and there wasn't a lot of time for the actual fashion show part of the book, which I think should have been what it mainly focused on, so we're going to be getting rid of that. The Falconer. Beautiful cover. I adore this cover. I thought it was going to be a fantasy, and it's actually a steampunk read. Steampunk is not a genre I'm interested in exploring, so I'll be letting that go. The Girl with All the Gifts. I thought this was going to be more of a horror, but it's not quite a horror. I don't know how I would describe it, but I didn't really like it, and I didn't really like the characters. It feels like a dad read. If I had to describe it, it feels like something a dad would enjoy. Not me. And Lies We Tell Ourselves. This is a story about two girls falling in love during segregation, and one of them is black and one of them is white. I just thought the white girl was so awful. I understand that people at the time were racist, but I don't understand why the author chose to write a romance with someone who was so racist and thought she was so above the person she was in love with, so unhauling that. Okay, we are on to our third and final bin. So, My Heart and Other Black Holes. This is a story where love cures depression. Not interested in that. That Kid Rules the World. I really liked Kale Going in high school, but I don't remember enough about this book to justify keeping it on my shelf, and I'm not going to do a reread. Dorothy Must Die. I hated this book. My friend stuck it out through the whole series. She said the series doesn't get any better. This is very much I'm Not Like Other Girls. Girls who are pretty are dumb, and it's just a bad book. It's a bad book, and the characters are bad, and I didn't like it at all. Exit Pursued by a Bear. I actually really enjoyed this book. I thought it was quite good. That is upside down. I thought it was quite good, but not enough to keep on my shelf. It was a good story, but I don't really care about it that much. Name of the Wind. I'm unhauling this because I have a nicer copy of it now. That's the only reason. I adore this book so much, but I got a really nice copy, so I don't need this old sort of trade paperback copy, which I never really liked. Catching Stars. This was a book I got in Owl Crate, and I hated it. It was a chore to read, so I'm happy to unhaul that. School Shooters. This is a very sort of, it's a nonfiction book. It's just a analytical look at some of the school shooters there have been in America and Canada. And I believe there's also a couple from the UK and other places. It's just sort of a description of their crimes, what they did, who they were, what their sentences were. It's a fine nonfiction book, but it's not something that, you know, I need to keep. The Glass Arrow. This was one of the first books I read when I started book blogging, so it has a special place in my heart. But as a story, it's just kind of a dystopian fiction where women are the lesser class, so that's been done a lot, obviously, and I feel like it's been done better, so I don't need this book. So I have two of the School for Good and Evil series. I believe the third one is in here somewhere. I only read the first three books. The series kept going, but I felt like it had reached a natural conclusion after the first three books. It was a little bit of a queer baiting sort of story. I really liked the concept for the school, and I really liked the school, how it was written, but ultimately I feel like this is better as a movie than it would be as a book series, so I'm glad it's getting a Netflix adaptation. I'm gonna watch that, but as a book series, I don't really want to keep it around. Rebel Bully Geek Pariah. This is just a YA thriller, and it's not a very good one. I don't remember almost anything about it. Just bland. Queen of Shadows. The cover for this is so beautiful, so it breaks my heart a little bit to let it go, but it's such a standard fantasy with all the common tropes. I can't think of a single thing that makes this story unique, so I'm going to be unhauling the book. All the Crooked Saints. I like this book all right, but it's not something I really enjoyed. I like Maggie Stiefvater, but I feel like maybe I like the Raven Boys more than anything else she's written. I'm going to try and finish the Shiver series, but this one I'm going to unhaul because it just wasn't very special to me. Red Queen. I know this is a popular series on Booktube and in book blogs. I know a lot of people love it. I don't know if it's because I read it after reading so many young adult fantasy that this one just didn't stand out and didn't have a chance, but it didn't stand out and it didn't have a chance. I couldn't get attached to it, and it was so much like so many other things that I'd read. That said, the cover is very beautiful. It was definitely a cover buy for me. Witchy, I hated this. I thought as a graphic novel it was very awkward. It didn't have a natural stopping point. I hated the way that they wrote the villain and that she was trans, and that somehow just made everything shitty she'd ever done disappear because, oh, you're trans, of course it's fine for you to be a bully and to be shitty, which isn't how it works. And also the art was just so inconsistent. I had trouble telling the characters apart. The main character doesn't have a defined color palette. She doesn't have a defined hair length. Very weird. Not a fan. Violent Ends. This is a sort of anthology about the same school shooting where it tells it from a bunch of different characters' perspectives. I did enjoy reading it, but I didn't think that it was a great depiction of school shootings, and I didn't think it was a sort of sensitive view of the subject. Some of the stories were definitely better than others on that point because they're all written by different authors, but there were some where I wasn't a fan, so I'm going to unhaul that. Snow Like Ash, another beautiful cover buy that just didn't live up to the hype. I don't really remember anything about this book because it was such a standard fantasy. When I read it, I was reading a lot of standard fantasies, and this one just blended in with everything else. Hush Hush. I read this in high school. I was really into it then. I really liked the Dark Angel sort of boyfriend thing. I have a lot of dark boyfriends now. I don't need another one. And I don't know, I just feel like this, it won't hold up well if I reread it and try and finish the series, so I'm not going to. The Walls Around Us. I don't remember a lot about this book. I think it's about a prison and a ballerina who goes to prison. Something like that. I don't know. It didn't stick with me, obviously, so I'm not going to keep it. The Cat Did That. This is another Chicken Soup book. Again, I don't feel like the new Chicken Soup books hold up to the same standard as the old ones did, and even if they did, they're not nice to display on my shelf. I don't really want to keep them around. They're sort of a thing that I read once and I'm done. Last School for Good and Evil book. Again, a shame because the covers are so cute and I really do like them. I think also part of the reason I'm unhauling them is because I don't have a hardback for the first one, so they don't match, which is a big issue for me. A big avalanche. Oh, I need to make more stable stacks. Goodbye Days by Jeff Sentner. I really liked his other work that I read. Rain and Delilah's Midnight Matinee. This one was good, but it wasn't as good, so I don't really want to keep it. The Merciless. I feel like this is just gore porn. The plot doesn't really make sense. The characters don't really make sense, but there are some gory scenes. It's not too gory. It's sort of like a light gore porn. It's fine, but I don't want to keep it. Side Effects May Vary, another Julie Murphy book. This one I hate a lot more than Dumplin'. The main character in this book, I wish she was dead by the end of it. Like, she doesn't deserve anything that she has. She is a horrible human being. The Valiant by Holly Black. I'm keeping Ironside and Tithe. I feel like those go together really well. Valiant just feels like it's not in place with the other two books. I don't know why it is in the middle of the trilogy. It doesn't feel like it has to be. And in fact, this edition of it doesn't match my editions for Ironside and Tithe, so I'm happy to get rid of this because it doesn't match anything on my shelf and I didn't enjoy it. The Haunting of Hill House. I hated this. I hated every second of it. There was not a moment of it that was spooky for me. The foreword is 50 pages of a 200-page book. So easy to get rid of this. Owlcrate sent it to me, but it's not signed or anything, so, I mean, obviously, so I'm gonna get rid of that. Need, this is kind of a neat sort of science fiction book where there's a online program where you can try and get whatever you want, and she needs an organ for her brother. I don't remember much else about it though, and for that reason I'm gonna let it go. Milk and Honey, this is a poetry collection. I didn't enjoy any of the poems. I don't feel like they were particularly good poems. It's just not for me. Winged Poppy Midnight. I really like April Genevieve Tuchok's writing, but I didn't like the characters in this book, and I thought they were all bad people and just weird for the sake of being weird. So it's a shame because this is actually a really nice cover. The Fifth Wave, very basic dystopian end of world stuff. I didn't feel like anything about this book stood out. Liars and Losers Like Us. Didn't like this book. Very insensitive to all the topics it tried to cover. It made suicide seem like a martyrdom, something that you can do to fix people's problems, and I hated that. I'm glad it's not a very popular book. I don't know how I found out about it, but I'm going to be getting rid of it. Extraordinary Means is about kids who have tuberculosis and have to go live in a special camp for kids who have tuberculosis, but I think it's sort of a, it's not quite sort of present day, it's sort of a future scenario. It was good. I didn't dislike it, but I also didn't love it, so. I'm Not Your Manic Pixie Dream Girl. Again, this is kind of like a book where, yes, Manic Pixie Dream Girls are bad, but Beatrice is also, well, I'm better than other girls. I'm not like other girls. I did like the main male romantic interest that ended up coming out at the end of the book, but I didn't like the boy that they were chasing for most of it, and I didn't really like the main character, so that's boring. Shatter Me. This is fairly popular. I didn't like the writing style. I didn't like the main character. There was nothing about this book I enjoyed except for Warner. If the book was about Warner more often, I would read it, but it's not just about Warner, so I'm not going to continue. The Last Time We Say Goodbye. This is about the protagonist's brother committing suicide. It's a fairly good read. It's interesting, but it's not anything special. And finally, The Rest of Us Just Live Here by Patrick Ness. Brilliant concept for a book. I don't feel like it ended up doing what I wanted it to do, so I didn't end up enjoying it as much as I thought I would. And that is it. I have no idea how many books I am unhauling with this unhaul, but it is a good number. It's 3 whole bins, and I want to keep unhauling books that I didn't enjoy so that I have space on my shelves for the books that I did enjoy. It's just something I need to keep in mind. I realize that I will never have infinite space. I cannot keep every single book I read, which is up until this point what I've been doing. So I'm going to start unhauling books at least once a year if I didn't enjoy reading them, or if I don't like the way they look on my shelf, or for any reason, I'm going to try and do an unhaul once a year just to purge myself of the books that I don't need to give space in my life so that I have room for the books that I do want to give space in my life. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you have a great weekend. Don't forget to like and subscribe down below.